continue. There's...
What do you mean the park's not ready to open?
Just what I said to you, Mr. Sangster.
You have been up here 4 months to make this campground operational. I show up for the big opening, Memorial Day weekend, and now you tell me the camp is not ready for the public?
Memorial Valley is unusual, that's for sure.
Well, all I know is it gives me the creeps.
We're lost. You get me out here and you tell me we're lost?
A couple of intelligent fox. Leave a trail a snow-blind Texican could follow.
What about the others back at camp? We've got to warn them. Oh, God, this is terrible.
Just calm down. Just take it easy.
My best friend is lying there dead, and you tell me to take it easy?
Rick? Tom? Hello?
Hey, this is Deborah Foreman from April Fool's Day and Destroy Her, and you are listening to Hysteria. Hysteria continues. Bye, you guys.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to the Hysteria. The Hysteria continues. Got something in my mouth. It's going to be one of those shows. But yeah, thank you. That was Deborah Foreman from April Fool's Day and Waxwork introducing the Hysteria continues. Also slightly tongue-tied, and who can blame her? And thank you to Ginny Hall Cameron for getting us that clip.
Thank you, Ginny.
Yes, indeed. And yes, today we are back, and we're heading off to the countryside for some relaxation and murder in Nathan's pick, Memorial Valley Massacre. Is it Memorial Valley Massacre or Memorial Day Massacre? I can never remember.
It's Valley.
Valley, okay.
Yeah, but the print I was watching was called Memorial Day, just Memorial Day and no massacre at all.
Same here, but I've got trivia on that.
Ooh.
And the version I saw was Valley of Death.
Oh.
That was the original UK release on video. So anyway, before we get
the
on
version I saw made me wish for the sweet release of death.
How dare you,
Joseph? Yes, it's going to be another controversial Nathan pick. So we've gone from Pupi Avati's House of the Laughing Windows to Cameron Mitchell's Walk On in Memorial Valley Massacre. So anyway, Nathan, are you pleased to be introducing, or not necessarily introducing us, maybe reminding us of this movie?
Oh, yes. I'm very excited because I think that it is a nice slice of late 80s cheese.
Exactly. Funny enough, I was thinking, with all the world going to hell in a handbasket, what better way to relax than watching some late or early or even late 80s slasher movies with an extra dose of cheese. It's a great way to sort of just brush off the world's problems for 80 minutes or 90 minutes at least.
As long as the world doesn't end in the next, hour.
Well,
wow, you're a bit of a goth today, Joseph.
Yeah, it's not making light of world events, but just sort of saying sometimes it's nice to have just a getaway from everything. And there's nothing better than watching mullets and tight stonewashed jeans and someone dressed as a caveman killing teens with an axe. So, but thank you. Well, we'll see. It remains to be seen, Nathan, to see if we are thanking you or cursing you a little bit later. But Erik, how are you doing?
I am awesome, because it's not 7 o'clock in the morning.
Unlike for Joseph.
It's 8 o'clock in the morning for me.
Yeah, which is still not great for a Sunday.
No.
Well, I say our American, Nathan and Joseph always go take one for the team, don't you, by getting up extra early on a Sunday.
This is why I relish the drunk cast, because we usually do those like late at night here, and you guys are like already tired, so it's like revenge.
Yes, it's apart from that wild weekend we had together in Manchester, Erik. I'll never forget it.
Yes, and that wild weekend in London.
Oh, that's true. Yes,
with Amanda
and Gore Blimey.
Yep.
Yeah. So okay, but what happens in London and Manchester stays in London and Manchester, doesn't it, Erik?
Yeah, we ate chips. Oh no, I've let the cat out of the bag.
And had a few drinks, or more than a couple of drinks. But anyway, so in time-honoured tradition, let's talk about what we've been watching recently. And I know there's been, some of us are caught up with a few things. But Erik, do you want to go first? What have you been watching the last week or so?
Well, I've been trying to catch up on our next top 3 is 1999, so I've been watching a couple of those movies, but of what I can speak of, the only thing I've seen is the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So this is, of course, the one released to Netflix last week, weekend, I think it was. And I only sat down to watch it because I thought, okay, everyone else is going to be watching it on the podcast, so I might as well see it so I can chime in with my tuppence. But I was not expecting to like it. And much against the critical opinion about this film, I really enjoyed it because, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. One of the things I don't like about it is that, particularly those first four, a good third of the movie is somebody tied to a chair screaming a lot, and it's, for me, that's kind of tedious and headache inducing, and I don't get any thrill from it at all. And thankfully that is sidestepped in this one completely. And actually, this is much more like a traditional slasher movie than any of the other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, in that it just seems to have one villain whose sole purpose is just to kill anyone who crosses his path, whereas in the other films it's kind of a crazy family, and and I'm glad that's missing from this one, because Chop Top, I think, is that his name from part 2, really, really irritated me, and it's that kind of character that I can't abide in these type of films. And thankfully, again, as I said, all that is done away with in this Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's just straight ahead slasher movie antics, and there's tons of gore. It's really quite effects heavy, this movie, in the way that maybe an 80s movie would be, although we'd probably end up seeing a cut version of it if it was made back then. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it is stupid. It is as stupid as all the critics say, but that's not a bad thing in my opinion. I mean, I embraced the stupidity of its plot, which is some entrepreneurs trying to regenerate or gentrify a kind of ghost town as such, I suppose it is, and they encounter Leatherface, and a busload of potential investors get their comeuppance as well, and it's all very, very stupid and very throwaway, but I'm sorry to say, I got a kick out of it. I really enjoyed it, and this will probably be my final words on the podcast, because you're probably going to kick me off, but it's my favourite Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, I think. Yes,
I'm just in shock.
I'm sorry, Nathan. What did you think, Nathan? Because the original 1974 movie is your favorite of all time.
I loved it. It was just a fun slasher. I get like all the critical response to it. Like I kind of can understand where they're coming from, particularly one character. I don't want to spoil anything, but I felt that character was just wasted, and you could just take that character out of the movie and really it wouldn't have mattered.
I don't think it's a spoiler as such, because can we mention? What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, well, we don't have to discuss her fate.
Yeah, Sally Hardesty makes a return. Obviously not played by Marilyn Burns this time, because she'd passed away. Played by an Irish actress called Alwyn Ferrer, and which is not an Irish name, by the way. And yeah, she might as well not be there.
I mean, I feel like, a bulk of the film is just her getting to the town. Like, and it's like a long time in the movie, I feel like, before we even are introduced to her. I mean, I don't know. I just felt that it seemed, her whole appearance and everything seemed tacked on. And I just thought, it didn't have any impact or anything. I mean, like say her confrontation with Leatherface didn't really have any impact. It was just sort of whatever.
And it should have been like totes emotion.
Yeah, there should have been some emotion there. But no, overall, I thought the movie was a slice of slasher fun. I loved the bus scene. The bus scene was just so much fun. And they got me with the ending.
Yeah, got me too, and I loved it.
I love it, but you guys know I love stupid movies, so of course I'm going to love it.
I think a case in point might be the one coming up for the main feature. But, Joseph, what were your thoughts on TCM 2022?
Yeah, I have a yo-yo relationship with the TCM series of films. I like a couple, but I dislike a vast majority, and I never really feel the need to revisit the ones that I do like. So I went in with very low expectations for this. I guess it's a soft reboot. It features the return of the Sally Hardesty character. The movie is, it's extremely dumb, and I mean dumb. I mean, it asks you to buy into this premise of a busload of Gen Z characters trying to revitalize this small Texas town that time, but not Leatherface forgot, with Instagram live feeds and kind of this Whole Food bake sale. So right off the bat, it's a plot that, asks a lot of you. I mean, it completely wastes the Sally Hardesty character in one of the most underwritten ways imaginable. And the film seems more concerned with flashy gore effects than it does giving you any character to root for, outside of Leatherface. But as the film soldiered on, I found myself falling in love with the sheer stupidity on display. And this is what I would call like a set piece slasher film, in that it bypasses the typical TCM tie a woman to a chair and then threaten to eat her while a family is screaming and screeching in the background scenario. And it kind of goes for a straight ahead slasher movie kind of thing. It's got one wild, ridiculous murder after another, including a scene where Leatherface slaughters an entire bus full of influencers with his trusty chainsaw. I mean, it's so splattery that the gore feels almost Evil Dead inspired, and Leatherface isn't bogged down, from killing by, his chatty family members. It's just him out killing people, and that's it. I mean, it wallows in one dumb scene after another, and damn it, I had a lot of fun with it. For me, it felt like a genuine tub of popcorn kind of slasher film. I mean, there's no bitterness or cynicism as it's kind of typical in slasher films of late. In fact, it's so fast paced and stupid, it doesn't really even have time to make these influencers unlikable, as they all pretty much die in quick succession. I mean, if you're a TCM purist, I imagine you're not going to get much out of this. But as a slasher movie without a brain in its head, I thought it really worked. So thumbs up from me.
Oh, and here comes Mr. Naysayer. Come on, Justin.
Well, I probably it was the least infused out of the four of us with this. Although I did, in my review on Hysteria Lives, I did acknowledge that once you realise that it's not really rebooting the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, in so much it's not taking the first film and using that as a basis for it, it's the tone is completely different. Once I realised that it was just going to be a dumb slasher movie, and when I say dumb slasher movie, I say that with affection rather than ridicule. I had an okay time with it. Things that just took me out of it were the Sally Hardesty character. It just seemed that, I'm not even a big fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. It's not my favourite franchise. I like them. I've seen them all, but it's not ones I return to time and time again. But I thought taking back a legacy character like Sally Hardesty and treating that character in the way the film did was pretty much unforgivable. It was just such a wasted opportunity, and just felt like it was just done to sort of get bums on seats and people to come to watch it without any real thought of how to treat that character, not necessarily sympathetically, but certainly with perhaps the respect that character deserved. But hey ho, that's the case. But there's all sorts of it was so full of flaws and holes and things like that. But once again you turn your brain off, then you can go for it. I mean, the idea that Leatherface must now be knocking 80, mid-70s, 80s. The other thing that kind of, for me, that I found difficult to acknowledge really was the fact that the way that, again, something in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and actually most of the sequels, that you've got differing faces and aspects of Leatherface's personality, for want of a better term. But in this, in the first one, he's this kind of like, like a man child. He's kind of like, he's kind of childlike. I mean, he's slobbering and he does all these kind of pratfalls. In fact, when we saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it got re-released in the cinemas back in the UK after being banned on video for years in the early 2000s, and everyone was just roaring with laughter all the way through it. And in fact, actually, you could argue that Texas Chainsaw Massacre and certainly its sequel, the Hooper sequel, were black comedies. But you didn't get any of that here at all. I mean, he was literally just, there was no personality at all with Leatherface. He was just this monster with a chainsaw, which in itself isn't a bad thing. Once you realise that you're not going to get anything more, and sometimes arguably you don't want anything more than like a fun slash movie, then I'm okay with it. It's just, but there are a couple of flaws that kind of stick in my craw a bit. But given that it's been a massive success for Netflix, although my understanding is it's meant to be a cinema release, and it got terrible audience reviews or previews. But having said that, it seems to have been a massive success on Netflix. So who knows? We may well see more sequels along the way. But yeah. So thank you, Erik. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Joseph, how about you?
Yeah, I caught the new Hulu thriller, No Exit, which has gotten not exactly high praise, but some pretty encouraging reviews. So this one concerns a woman in this kind of court-ordered rehab facility, and she learns that her mother's dying, so she escapes the facility one night to, pay her mother one last visit, only to be caught up in this kidnapping plot at a rest stop during a major snowstorm. When she discovers a small child bound and gagged inside of a van parked outside the rest stop. So this one is a whodunit with a few really ludicrous twists and turns, but it's never to the point of no return. It really reminded me of something like Devil, with the confined space setting and a small handful of characters acting as suspects. There's shades of identity in there as well, with the characters kind of waiting out this brutal storm. There's some really choice suspense sequences, and I love the snowy kind of claustrophobic setting, but I felt that once the identity of the kidnapper is revealed, the film doesn't have many interesting cards left to play, and it goes in pretty much the direction you'd expect. So pretty good, but ultimately kind of inconsequential, despite what some of the reviews will tell you. I don't think it's the second coming of suspense films, but it is pretty darn effective for the most part, and I would recommend it. It's called No Exit, and it was released to Hulu just about a week or two ago.
I've not heard of it, but it sounds intriguing. So how about you, Erik and Nathan?
No. Is it a sequel to Do Not Entry?
Yeah, and All Your Base Are Belong to Us.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, Joseph, anything else?
I rewatched, and I'm sure you'll talk about this. I rewatched the new Scream film, but I can wait on that if you're going to bring that up, because that's all I've seen.
Okay, right. Well, thank you. Yes, Scream may be popping up shortly, but Nathan, how about you?
I watched the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I liked it.
Have you guys seen the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh, is that the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie?
Yeah.
The new Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix.
Oh.
Starring Alan Del Hardesty.
Well, talking of the reboots or requels, as they, of course, they talk wax lyrical about in the new Scream movie. I finally caught the new Scream movie streaming, and so it was so I watched it last night, and I've got mixed feelings on it. I actually enjoyed it more than possibly I thought I would. There were some genuinely sort of clever touches. Again, I'm not going to go into spoiler territory because, again, there's a lot of people probably haven't seen it. I know Erik hasn't. It is a really difficult thing. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't, because we always talk about how we love the lethal predictability of the Friday the 13th series, certainly the first sort of 5 or 6 of the movies. But also sometimes paradoxically feel a little bit cheated when the film just seems to hit the same, like a film like Scream, hits the same marks going forward and the same set pieces, which of course is, in this, it's every 5 minutes, Ghostface pops up and attacks somebody and runs around the house chasing them with a big knife. And, as slasher movie fans, that's great. And that, in fact, actually, in this film, they're really well orchestrated. In fact, there's a great sequence that can remind me of like the sequence, some of the one in the Final Destination. I can't remember the name of the character, but the teacher, when everything, you think she's going to die from all sorts of things, and it keeps on teasing you and then giving you kind of false expectation something happened, it doesn't. And in this one character is walking around the kitchen and the music cue kind of starts rising and they open the fridge, and when they shut the door you expect Ghostface to be standing there and he or she's not, and they keep on doing that, and it's kind of really sort of playful and fun. And I kind of liked the kind of the returning characters. It was interesting to see, you've obviously got Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette coming back as no great spoiler. And I won't say what happens to them in this, but it could be argued, and I have seen it written elsewhere, that it feels like they're kind of more cameos, like they've kind of relegated to supporting cast for the kind of a new, younger cast that seem to be going to be taking over, presumably into Scream 6, which I think is filming this summer. And literally they use that old standby of extending their kind of screen time, but not really, by having two characters driving for the last, what feels like half of the movie to the kind of the climax of the movie. So you're cutting back to them driving. So you can reminded they're in the movie, but they don't feel necessarily essential to it. So I mean that's the problem. But having said that, I did have fun with it. It's kind of, you could argue some of the pop kind of psychology and the self-referential stuff is getting a bit long in the tooth now, and they kind of feels like it might be stretching out a bit, and how they're going to manage to do that with going forward of other sequels. But I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. And I kind of, again, now I know what its beats are. I'm looking forward to sort of catching it again. So yeah. So I don't know if that chimes with Nathan and Joseph, because I know Erik hasn't seen it yet, but I know, of course, Erik is probably the least enthused.
Yeah, well, after watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre and what they did to that, I am kind of enthused now. So I have it sort of lined up to watch. So I'll have it free. I'll have my opinions in the next podcast.
Well, it's polar opposite, and I think Scream is 2022 is 1 hour 56 or something, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new version is or the new sequel is like 83 minutes or something.
Yeah.
They do, again, arguably outstays its welcome as far as kind of, stretching into epic proportions. But have your thoughts mellowed or changed at all, Joseph?
If anything, I thought it was worse. I thought Scream 4 was my least favorite, but now I'm thinking this is, because the returning characters, they're really given the short shrift here. The new characters, I don't find them very interesting at all. I thought the writing just feels very fan fiction-y, and the direction is just this never-ending parade of tight shots on their faces. I mean, you don't really get any room to breathe. It's just constantly right up on someone's face. And worst of all, and this didn't really register the first time around, but the acting is just so dreadful, especially the lead girl. And I hate to say this, but she's so awful. And this is some slight spoilers, and I'll try not to spoil it too much for Erik, but I like the daylight scene. That's all I'll say about that. I think the gore is really rousing here, and Roger Jackson's voice work here, I think it's a bit more menacing than it usually is, and it's not as jokey. But I don't know. I like I said, I think this really is missing Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, and it just feels like really, really bad fan fiction. So it's my least favorite of the series.
There's a couple of things that not spoiler stuff, but there's one thing was one of the main characters is in hospital for quite a lot of the movie, and they keep on talking about her mother. But I would have thought if your daughter had been attacked by Ghostface and she's in hospital, you would at least bother paying a visit. But the mother character never appears in the movie, which seemed a bit.
That's the least of that scene's problems, because it's like Halloween 2 syndrome, and probably even worse. It's like this hospital is like not only jet black, but it's like completely empty.
Yeah, I thought they missed a beat there. I was expecting someone to go, "My God, it's like Halloween 2," but they didn't.
Yeah.
And if you would feel if Kevin Williamson had been writing it, then he might have put that jibe in. But it seemed too good an opportunity to miss. I'm surprised they kind of missed that. And the other kind of not MacGuffin, whatever it was, the whole last kind of third of the movie hinges on the fact that someone's missing their inhaler, and it could have gone so many different ways, and it's so it kind of a bit clunky. But overall, who knows? Maybe my opinion will change a little bit more if I watch it again. But Nathan, what were your thoughts?
Oh, I loved it. I thought that it was very entertaining, and just a fun Scream entry. Like Joseph, I liked the daylight scene. I thought that was well done. I like deserted hospitals. I think they're creepy, even though any hospital I've been in is not deserted whatsoever, but I do like them in movies.
Stop saying dessert. It's making me hungry.
Justin.
Yes.
Justin, did you suss out the identity of the killer or killers, as it usually is in these films? Because I thought this was probably the most obvious of all five.
Without giving it away, yeah, one of them I did, definitely. Partly because of their, I thought, No, I won't say because I don't want to give it away. Apart from the fact is that I recognise that that actor or actress and what they've done before, and I thought, are they going to? Is this going to be as obvious as I think it is? And it was so. But I didn't guess the identity of the other one, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's like I don't hate Scream 5. I don't hate any of the Scream films. I mean, I dislike a lot of them, but I don't know. I just felt like after 10 years and them trying to do this whole kind of legacy reboot thing, I thought it would be just a little better than what it was. Maybe they're just kind of getting their footing, and part 6 will wow us. So who knows?
The funny thing was that made me think was I remember when we were talking about before it came out in the trailer, and you're going, "Wow, it's Leatherface has got this gold mask, got a flamethrower," and none of that was in the movie. It was all kind of in the Stab movies, wasn't it?
You mean Ghostface?
Ghostface, sorry, yeah, Ghostface.
Why? What did you say?
He said Leatherface.
Oh, right, okay.
It's too many faces. But it's kind of wasn't it the gold? Was it a gold face, or it certainly was a flamethrower? I remember you saying, "Oh, well, they're going to do something different in this." And part of the joke is the Stab movies. They're all going how awful Stab 8 is because they've gone completely off the rails, and they had like little short shots of some really muscular man with his kind of running around with a Ghostface mask with 2 axes in his hand. And also the flamethrower. I think they show it maybe on a screen, on a computer screen or something. But they don't do that in the movie. So when you were thinking that they were actually going to use that in this movie, they didn't. So that felt not exactly like a cheat, but it was kind of a very sort of meta, I kind of guess, with them.
Yeah, the one thing I did like about Scream 5 or Scream 2022 is it kind of expands a little bit on that whole Stab 1 world, where in Scream 2 you saw the opening sequence, like the opening redux of what happened to Casey Becker with Heather Graham, and here we get to see more scenes of that, of like the character of like Randy and other characters, and I thought that was playful and fun, but maybe too little too late.
Well, I like the final location where the showdown happens. I won't spoil that, but I did my prediction. If I'm going to make a prediction of where they might go with Scream 6, I might be completely wrong, but I think it would. They could have real fun if they set it a film convention, a horror convention, for like Stab movies, horror convention, and they somehow managed to get sort of some of the legacy characters back. But you could have lots of fun with that, lots of kind of film nerds and cosplay and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
It's copywritten by J.A. Kurzweil. But okay. Lastly, I rewatched. It was on Double. I had a friend around last night, and I rewatched Train to Busan, the South Korean zombies on a train movie, which I love. It's such a good movie. And I saw that they're remaking it as The Last Train to New York next year.
Oh. Any idea who's directing it?
No, I had a quick look at it. I just pulled it up on IMDb. Oh, it's someone called Timo Chigianto, who's I'm just seeing what else he, presume it's a he, has done. He directed VHS 94.
Oh.
VHS 2 as well, some of the ABCs of Death.
You go from to
Well, I mean, to be fair, the ABCs of Death was only he directed segment L for Libido, so it'll be interesting. But any other fans of Train to Busan? Have you all seen it?
I haven't seen it, no, because I'm burnt out on zombies.
I've tried to start the movie because it's like getting rave reviews, but I still haven't seen it. I will eventually.
Wow. Okay. Well, I might pick that for my next Patreon pick then.
Just so we watch it.
Yeah. It's kind of probably one of the best zombie movies ever made.
Better than Burial Ground
or Return of the Living Dead.
Well, I would say it's on
Zombie Holocaust.
Is it as good as Zombie Lake?
No, I must admit, no.
You're pushing your luck today, Nathan.
Right. So anyway, we're going on holiday on a camping trip.
Yay.
The weekend is here. It's time to party till you drop.
Until now, Memorial Valley has been God's private woodland.
How do you want your stay?
Well done.
Why, everything that's happened up here has been purely accidental. What animal could do this?
Something out there.
What?
What guards the secret of Memorial Valley?
Memorial Day.
Memorial Valley Massacre. Find out the secret of Memorial Valley. Everyone's dying to know.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the tent, despite some horrific warning signs, a greedy park developer opens the Memorial Valley campground and sets the stage for a bloodbath. Whatever it is that stalks Memorial Valley kills with the strength of some powerful beast and with the cunning and vengeful hatred of a human. The most experienced campers don't know the law of the land in Memorial Valley, and their ignorance is no excuse, because the killer will not forgive, forget, or bury the hatchet except in someone's chest. So Memorial Valley Massacre was one of those ones that I rented from my video store when I was a kid. I rented it many, many, many times. Watching it as an adult, I mean, I can recognize there are some flaws in the film. For one, it takes way too long to get to the actual killing. And, you know, that, I mean, I found the characters interesting enough that, it didn't bother me too much. But I did think it would have benefited from like an opening death scene, like something like that. But really, the killer in this movie is played more sympathetic. Like I was saying earlier, there are huge cheesy moments in this. I absolutely loved the truck scene with the crushing the three people. When the truck is falling, they all just kind of stand there and stare at it when they had ample opportunity to get away from it. And then when the truck actually falls, there's literally nobody around it. And then when they go look at the carnage, there's like three people laying dead like around it. So yeah, it was like that. Which I thought was funny. I love the bear scene where the bear is like up in or sniffing around the tent and they don't know what it is and suddenly it sticks its head in. And yeah, it's a bear. I did feel like there really wasn't much to do with like a final girl in this movie. I mean, we do have like kind of a love interest of the main guy, but she doesn't really do anything. She just kind of hangs around with the group. She doesn't really face off with the killer or anything like that. But yeah, I thought that it had plenty of funny scenes, a lot of absurdity. I thought the family with the kid, like the obnoxious family, I thought they were fun. I was kind of sad that the mom and dad didn't meet up with the killer at any point because they just kind of leave the campground after what happens to their son. Of course, the son was really obnoxious, so I didn't feel much sympathy when he, was attacked by the killer. Not at all. I love the traps, like the traps death scene. Like a couple of people fall into this like opening in the ground that's got spikes in it, and I thought that was a lot of fun too. I was expecting Cameron Mitchell to maybe be in this more since he's top billed, but he's just in the beginning, so don't expect to see him throughout the film. Obviously, they probably just paid him for working a day. But yeah, I love Memorial Valley Massacre. I think it is absolutely absurd, ridiculous. The killer is not scary whatsoever, but I don't know, like it's got stuff like that truck scene, and I just love stuff like that. It's just totally absurd. What did you think about it? I'm going to start with Justin.
Right. Well, I'm surprised you didn't find the opening 10 minutes of people standing around being told that they couldn't use Portaloos wasn't riveting. I even when I reviewed this back on Hysteria, and I can't remember how long ago I'd reviewed it, but it must have been over 10 years ago. Even back then, I kind of found it had cheesy charms because it is so ridiculous that you've got this idea that you've got this killer who is kind of like he's like a caveman crossed with Bambi, isn't he? Not Bambi, Snow White. He's friends with all the animals. He saves bunny rabbits if they get caught up in twine. He feeds mice in his lair.
He's not friends with dogs.
No, well, see, that's the thing. He's not friends with dogs, and also he's wearing, because the backstory is, without spoiling it, because I mean you can't really swear, it's not whodunit, but it turns out that he's the long lost, kidnapped son of the chief ranger, isn't he? I think, or Cameron Mitchell, whichever is maybe not made that clear, but he's kind of possibly based on that the old story of the little German boy who was raised by wolves. Hundreds of years ago, that he's kind of raised himself in the wilderness, even though it's right next to a campground. And he's sort of dressed himself as this kind of teenage caveman with a mullet and bangs and Austin Powers teeth. And he just sort of flies around like Tarzan, knocking off teenagers in sort of in tight denim, which, at the end of the day, what more do you need in a movie? So it is ridiculous, but I think it's quite knowing. It's certainly, I think there's definitely some tongue in cheek in there, and it's full of those characters that I know that you love, Nathan. I mean, it's very much, you can imagine half the cast walking on from Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, or Moonstalker, or any of those kind of movies. You've got your bikers, you've got your horny teens, you've got that fantastic character Wendy, who is like Lulu Fishpaw. When she does all like, look at me, I'm dancing, and she's gyrating around, and all the bikers are whistling at her. It's just so stupid. And also I love the fact that what it doesn't do is it doesn't tip its hat completely, because the main character, who is the son of Cameron Mitchell, and the kind of ostensible final girl and the chief ranger play it completely straight, don't they? They're very stony faced. They don't camp it up at all. So it kind of shows in sharp relief all the other over the top characters. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It's no great classic, and I can imagine, if you were looking for a long lost 80s slasher classic, it's not scary in the least bit. But if you fancy a hunk of cheese, and lots of silliness and something that doesn't take itself too seriously, then you could definitely do far worse than getting a six-pack and some popcorn and watching this on a Friday night. So so thumbs up, Nathan.
Awesome. I have a dog fight going on in the background. Erik, what'd you think?
Yes, well, first of all, I had seen this film before. I had it on. Do you remember those box sets of DVDs you used to get? I think Brentwood was the name of the company, and they'd give you like 20 films on 10 DVDs or something like that for like tuppence halfpenny, but they'd all be horrible sort of VHS rips and stuff. So I had it on one of those discs, but I'd completely forgotten anything about the film, so it was kind of like watching it fresh this week. And yeah, so first of all, it reminded me of the Emerald Forest in the story setup about the son being kidnapped and being raised in the wild, except Emerald Forest was, of course, directed by John Boorman, whereas this one looks like it may have been directed by Nathan Johnson, which is a compliment, by the way. And like you were saying, Nathan, I think the biggest problem with the film is maybe its running time. It's 92 minutes, and it could easily lose 15 minutes, I reckon, because that first hour, it feels quite stretched at times. But do you know what? I was really surprised at the technical levels of the film, which were quite decent. I love the font they use on the opening credits. I don't know what it's called, but it was used a lot in the 70s, particularly on films like The Hills of Eyes. And I think Tarantino may have used it on Death Proof as well. But I don't know, it gives the film a real sort of nostalgic quality. Cameron Mitchell, top billing, and he's in it for what, 10 minutes to discuss dead dog in a well and the fact that toilets aren't working, and then he disappears, and that's him done and dusted. I mean, I was sure he was going to be the main protagonist in the film, but he sort of hands it over to his deputy, who's the the head ranger, whose son has gone missing, we learn 17 years earlier or whatever it is. So the acting talent is actually pretty good. I mean, the further down the IMDb list you go, the worse the acting gets. I mean, there are some challenged actors in the film, but they're generally, the leads are pretty good. I don't think it had a chance of being taken seriously, seen as the main villain. Well, the only villain in the piece is this sort of caveman who looks like John Bon Jovi in a loincloth with those Austin Power teeth that Justin was mentioning. So it kind of flits between being Don't Go in the Woods Alone and also trying to be Hills of Eyes at the same time, which is kind of an unusual mix, but it's a welcome mix because it's kind of fun. The kill scenes are quite effective. I mean, the axe to the chest, the wooden stake through the stomach, they're quite fun. I mean, there is some duff ones. That pit you were talking about, Nathan, where it's got spikes in it. There's the one sort of bit of eye candy in the film, that big burly biker in the very, 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 very tight stonewashed denim. He gets pushed into the pit of spikes, but they bend. They're made of rubber, and the camera doesn't even try and cut away from it. They bend like rubber when he falls in. There's no getting around that, I'm afraid. So the effect is kind of ruined. But it does lead to my favourite line delivery in the film. It's when the girls sees the dead bodies in the pit, and she says something like, "Oh God, it's horrible," in a way that makes, it's this movie's version of how do we know she is alive. So I thought that was good fun as well. And the last half hour I think is pretty decent. The first hour drags a little, with all the characters being introduced and the toilets situation being explained for 15 minutes or so. I thought that biker chick who does kind of a semi-erotic dance in the rain, possibly influenced by Linnea Quigley in Return of the Living Dead. The mullet-clad teens who encountered the bears, he said, I like the fact that they're all handed, weapons, assault weapons of some sort, just willy-nilly by the park ranger in an attempt to find out, attempt to just sort of hunt down the killer. I mean, really? Health and safety? Would they just hand out guns to anyone? I know, in America, guns are a problem, but really, would you be just giving rifles out to teenagers with mullets? Would you, Nathan?
No, I wouldn't. And it's funny because when they're hunting like the bear that they think it is, like they're jumping around, like acting like they're toy guns.
Yes, I thought that was fun. I thought some of the music was kind of ill-fitting as well, particularly at the start. And that the first kill with the chubby kid on the ATV, he has a sort of a mini fight with the caveman, which is really poorly choreographed, I thought, but again was kind of fun. What I want to know is why, Nathan, you might know the answer to this. Why does the park ranger have so many cans of beans on his desk, neatly stacked in a pyramid?
I think it's because they're healthy.
Yeah, full of protein, yeah. And if he's such a good tracker, as he's supposed to be, how come he hasn't seen John Bon Jovi running around in the wilderness, even though it's just next door to this park? Now, I know this campsite has only just opened, so maybe he's new to the area, but it just seems, even for a film of Memorial Valley Massacre's stature, it's a bit far-fetched to think that nobody has seen this guy running around in the woods. I mean, the cave is hardly miles away from civilization, by the looks of things, anyway. So, I mean, it's a film that I think it has its moments. It's a bit overlong, I said. The killer's very silly looking, and I think the film's horror potential would have been increased considerably if you'd taken out the caveman and replaced him with somebody like Jason or Michael Myers or Harry Warden. But I thought it was pretty watchable. I know this is probably preempting some background. I know it was released in some territories as a sequel to Sleepaway Camp, and I'm going to say this: it's better than Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. So there, Nathan Johnson.
Awesome, Joseph.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this in a very long time, and I remembered little about it, so that probably meant that I was nonplussed with it at the time. So when you said we were going to cover this one, I was really worried, but I hope for the best. And to be fair, Memorial Valley Massacre was shot a lot better than I remembered. The cinematography is often really flashy, and it reminded me a bit of something like the Zero Boys, in that in that department, the camera is constantly in motion. It's really well done. The acting across the board is also pretty serviceable for this sort of late 80s kind of grasp at the slasher movie golden years, especially the backwoods films. And I loved loved the rotating roster of exceptionally bad fashion choices on display. I mean, this is so late 80s, it hurts. I even liked a couple of the characters, especially the African-American couple whose their names escape me, so I called them Discount Demon and Anita, a la Friday the 13th Part 5. I thought some of their dialogue was a lot of fun. Even the killer had a kind of high school production goofiness to him that it didn't really elicit a lick of fear, but plenty of giggles in my mind. And you also have Big Bill Smith in a pretty thankless role, but even still, it's always good to see him in any movie or TV production. But Nathan, wow, this movie's so flat and uninvolving otherwise, that I actually, and I hate to admit this, but I actually adjusted the playback speed at one point just to get it over with. Yeah.
How do you do that? You must let me in on that secret for future Nathan picks.
You can do it on VLC or even on YouTube where I watched this. They have the option to do that. I hate to admit that I did that, but I was completely just uninvolved with the majority of this film. The first human death is 30 minutes into the movie, and before that happens, all we really have are 2 dead dogs and the killing of a bunch of snakes. And as an animal lover, on top of being a slasher movie fan, that just wasn't cutting it for me. And the kills, when they do start happening, they're of the kind of character A discovers the caveman killer. Were you
not engrossed by the blocked toilets subplot?
Not particularly.
Yeah.
I watched very closely though that snake sequence. I don't think they were real snake. They were real snakes on the table, but I don't think they were real snakes they were hitting or spraying with the
fire extinguisher.
Yeah, I know it was all fake, but I'm just saying, 30 minutes into the movie and all we have are 3 separate sequences of animals being killed. I just wasn't feeling it. And, I kept, like I said, the kills, when they do start happening, they're of the kind of character discovers the caveman killer stabs him with a stick or something. It's of that variety more often than not. And I don't know, I kept hoping for more of a don't go in the woods tone with the killer, at least. If they weren't going to attempt anything remotely resembling scares or even fun, I thought, it could have helped. It could have benefited from having a kind of an accidental tone. And this is all deliberate. Ultimately, this just wasn't for me. It wasn't very fun. It's one of those in one ear, out the other kind of affairs. And, scenes showing that this kind of feral caveman somehow knows how to drive tractors and sever gas lines. I thought they could have been played for laughs, and I guess they kind of are, but I didn't find it funny. I didn't find it scary. I didn't find it thrilling. And it's just, I don't know, it's just done with all this oomph of a soggy fart. I've pretty much forgotten the movie already, and I at least remember now why it's been decades since I've seen it. So I'm sorry, Nathan, this did very, very little for me, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, background. Who would like to go first?
I will go first. It was, like Erik said before, it was actually shot under the title Memorial Day and released internationally as Valley of Death, which is what you saw it under, Joseph. Of course, I saw it under Memorial Valley Massacre. The director, Robert C. Hughes, also directed Hunter's Blood, which is actually a really good movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's kind of a riff on Deliverance.
Let me correct you. I think Justin watched it under Valley of Death. I saw it under Memorial Day.
Oh, okay. All right. Cameron Mitchell was also in the Toolbox Murders, but I think you guys already know that. Like Erik was saying, it was also released as Son of Sleepaway Camp, despite having nothing to do with the Sleepaway Camp series. And from what I was reading, that version has hardcore porn inserted into it. Oh, yeah. Dusty Woods was also in the slasher film Hell High in the memorable role of Teen Girl.
Oh, I remember her role. That was good. She was good in that.
Bob Moore, who played a cop in this movie, also played a cop in Sorority House Massacre, another great late 80s slasher. Julie Jacob, who played Wife with Snakes, also did the wardrobe for the film. So that's who we got to thank for all that denim.
Now, I'd give her an award because I love the fashions in this film.
Thank you. even though I didn't do the fashion. Let's see. Erik and Justin, I know Joseph has a lot of background. Do you guys have anything before we get to Joseph's background?
Well, I'm just curious what Joseph's background refers to, because I don't want to...
Well, I'll go. Let's see. Memorial Valley Massacre was released stateside to VHS and Laserdisc in September of 1989 via Nelson Entertainment. Now, a lot of websites list this as getting a release in 1988 under the title Valley of Death, but I could find no evidence that this is true. You know, I've seen varying covers under that title, you know, under the Memorial Day title, and even under that Son of Sleepaway Camp title, but all of those were kind of released 1989 or post 1989. I'm assuming the 1988 date was the date of production, and that may have caused some confusion. Maybe you know a little bit more about this, Justin, but as far as I know, this film didn't technically exist until the fall of 1989. It was a part of a huge video store sales promotion for Nelson Entertainment and Embassy Entertainment at a quote unquote shockingly low price of $14.95 per copy, which means video stores, and I think Nathan probably attributed to this to a lot of revenue. Video stores would easily turn a profit on this tape. You know, they buy it for $14.95, and within a week's time, you probably make your money back. As you was talking about the infamous Son of Sleepaway Camp, it's purported to feature hardcore pornographic inserts and musical cues from the OG Sleepaway Camp trilogy. I've not seen it, but I do believe the original cut with all the hardcore pornographic shots is kind of lost to the sands of time, and only like softcore remnants remain on the DVD released by Spectrum Entertainment. This version apparently removes any scenes showing the name of the campground to give the illusion that we're returning to Camp Arawak, and it features an inverted still image of the infamous Angela face from the OG Sleepaway Camp. It's appended to the end credits, and they use the following songs from Sleepaways 1 through 3. They use Angela's theme, which is You're Just What I've Been Looking For in brackets by Frankie Vinci. It was added to the background of a dialogue sequence. They used Sleepaway by John Alton over the end credits, and also over the end credits was Straight Between the Eyes by Anvil. I think those two were from 2 and 3 respectively. It also lists during the end credits Jim Markovic as a producer, though to my knowledge he had nothing to do with this film at all. He shot the test footage for that lost Sleepaway Camp 4, The Survivor, which, you know, none of that footage is even used in this version of the film. In the special thanks portion of the credits, they list Tecate brand beer as a thank you, but they misspell it. So there's a big oops there. Actor Mark Casso, or Queso, I think it's Casso. He plays the Psycho Caveman. He's credited here as John Casso. He's interesting in that he was previously a gymnast who once took a very nasty tumble back in 1980, and he was paralyzed for 90 minutes until doctors fused his spine together. And he recovered in 10 months' time and went back on to regain his gymnastic abilities before retiring from gymnastics in 1984. Though he did play a gymnast in 1984's Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, apparently. I don't remember him in that movie. Do you remember him in that movie, Erik?
No, but there probably is a lot of gymnasts in Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. It's very, it's got a large cast.
Yeah, and it's a very stretchy film.
Very stretchy.
Yeah, he had a pretty short but impressive acting and stunt career in the 90s. He played the lead Ninja Turtle Leonardo in both Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Turtles in Time. He was a stunt performer in one of Erik's favorite films, Hellraiser Bloodline. And he did uncredited double work for actor Robin Shou in Beverly Hills Ninja with Chris Farley, the late Chris Farley. And he did
my favorite ninjas are totally from Beverly Hills.
Yes, all of them. And he had some uncredited stunt work in both Mortal Kombat from 95 and Mortal Kombat Annihilation from 97. He doubled for the characters of Sub-Zero and Cyrax, respectively. And writer Robert Hughes, he'd previously directed Hunter's Blood from 1986, so a bit of a previous slasher movie pedigree there.
I've never seen Hunter's Blood. Is that any good?
Hunter's Blood? Yeah, it's better than this. I actually like this one. It's got Clu Gulager in it. Yeah, did you mention that, Nathan?
I did.
Hunter's Blood? Okay.
It's well worth watching.
Yeah, it's pretty good, actually, yeah, but that's all the background I really have, so over to you, Justin.
Okay. Well, just a few other bits. The Erin O'Leary, who played the Lulu Fishbaugh-esque character of Wendy, went on to behind-the-scenes work on Jane Campion's The Piano with Holly Hunter, which is quite a change of pace. I saw the stuff about the Son of Sleepaway Camp with the porn inserts on one forum. It was going back 10 or 15 years ago now. They were saying that somebody said that it was probably somebody had edited them in on their Windows Movie Maker, and it wasn't an official release. And in fact, actually, all the kind of grey market releases over the years is actually owned by MGM. Now, the Valley of Death, because I used to have it on VHS as Valley of Death, and it had the artwork where you've got, which they've used in some things, where you've got the painted figure looming or kind of at the camera with the broken fingernails and the kind of the broken sharp teeth. So I wonder if that's where the idea that it came as a 1988 release. Now, the copyright, interestingly enough, when I was looking at the copyright details of it, the Motion Picture Corporation of America was one of the production companies of this, and they had the earliest that I have of this is from November of 1987, with a screenplay by David A. Boyes and John E. Kincaid. Now, neither of their names appear on this, but the next year, there's a copyright from February of 1988 with the screenplay by Francis Skrau, who is the screenwriter on this. So my understanding is that when the director came on board, they changed it all up. So I don't know what the original screenplay would have been like. So it looks like the film was shot in 1988 and got a release maybe on video in the UK in 1988 and later under a different title in 1989. Now, I found the only review I found of it, I don't think it got a cinema release anywhere, but it was actually shot on 35 millimeter. But I did find a review from Joe Bob Briggs at the drive-in, and a short quote from that was, "Speaking of vicious meat-eating threats to mankind, Memorial Valley Massacre is one of the best movies with massacre in the title to come out in the last 6 months, and is about a wilderness camp in California terrorized by a cave-dwelling hippie in a loincloth who spears fat kids to death for driving their off-road vehicles through his neighborhood." The only other thing I think I've got was that the filming location was Gold Creek Ranch in California outside Los Angeles. And that actually in real life is a yoga retreat. So a very different, or is now anyway. So, and I did find one very last thing, a review of the movie on moviechat.org. And the first line is, "As a Christian, I was slightly offended by some of the gorier parts and axe to the chest. Ooh."
But why would you watch a movie like this and expect anything different?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it does go on. The rest of it says, but in all, I thought it was a tense little movie that also has some pretty interesting ecological overtones as well. I wish I could go camping in that beautiful valley, but I'd surely stay away from that creepy little man that was running around. He looked like a little boy from Road Warrior. So obviously not. It wouldn't pass the muster on the Catholic, whatever it was, the Catholic charts of movies that were allowed or not allowed.
Maybe if the killer had stoned people to death instead, they would have found it less offensive.
Ooh, biting satire.
But I did like, actually, one thing that did make me laugh, I forgot to mention, was the biker guy who does get the axe to the chest. And I love it. Cuts to him and he just goes as if he's he's just nodding off.
I admit I love those biker characters. I love the scene. You'll like this, Nathan. I love the scene where they discover the cave. And he just picks up the skull, and the killer chases him. He's like, "Here, you want your skull back? Just leave me alone." I thought that was pretty amusing, actually.
That was funny.
I don't know why, but I just love when the big biker character keeps going, "Don't hurt me, just don't hurt me."
I'm like, dude, you've got like 160 pounds on this guy. You could sit on him, for God's sakes.
Ooh. I want to know: do they get the toilets fixed at any stage?
A lot of the characters left standing are going to be, hovering over those holes, kind of.
Yeah, they'll be gagging for a plop.
Oh.
Come on, let's hear what you've got for us. Have you got anything left?
Me or Joseph?
Or Joseph? No, you, because Joseph's already been, and I've been.
Oh, no. Joseph said everything I was going to say. Everything I've written down is what Joseph said.
Well, the one thing I'm wondering is, how did you word all yours? Can you read all yours back just so I can see how differently it's worded?
Oh, it's just fallen off the table. Sorry, I can't reach it. Although one thing I did like about Justin's review on Hysteria Lives is that in the kill count, in the body count, one of the victims he has, number 10, female has hair pulled. Does somebody die from having their hair pulled?
Yeah, he pulls the girl up into the tree, and she's got that huge head of hair, which is easy to grab onto. And that's another scene I actually liked, yeah.
She's one of the biker girls.
So you can actually die from getting your hair pulled. Wow.
I couldn't find any kind of information on the lead, Mark Mears, who played the lead in this. This is kind of his one and done movie. So I presume all the porno inserts were from the scene when him and the final girl strip out of their wet clothes into towels.
Possibly.
What did our listeners think of this movie, Joseph?
Well, a surprising 31 comments from Memorial Valley Massacre across our social feeds. And from that, we got Alex Bovenstein, and he writes, crazy that you're covering this when I just rewatched it yesterday. I first saw this under the name Son of Sleepaway Camp. Being a huge Sleepaway Camp fan, I was stunned that there was a lost sequel I hadn't seen. I couldn't tell you how confused I was after watching it. Years and many rewatches later, this is one of my all-time favorites. All the characters are fun, and there's never a dull moment. And the Rogue Scholar said he sums it up nicely. This has to be a Nathan pick. Indeed it is.
You know by how amazing it is.
Mm-hmm. For business inquiries, questions, suggestions, and general feedback, we haven't got any feedback in a while. Drop us a line at thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com. You can stay updated by joining us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and about a billion other podcatchers. And if you enjoy what we do, consider joining us on Patreon. We just released our Romy and Michelle off-piece choice for this month, and that was a fun time. And we talk about general horror films we don't discuss on the main show, and it's all for as little as $1 a month. So, we're all just a Google search away. So that's the Hysteria Continues, as you rightfully know.
Indeed, and we've just finished going to finish in this month our trawl through the 90s top 3 horror movies. So. 1998 will be out this month, and 1999 follows. So as Joseph said, join us over on Patreon. And we've got something like, how many shows is it now on there? It must be.
Romy and Michelle was 116. So.
Ooh.
So if you do join the Patreon, you get access to all the back catalogue as well. So if you haven't had your fill, like Erik did last night, then join. Why not? So okay. Well, talking of Erik. Do you have? He's been teasing us that this is the best joke he's ever done.
Have I?
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
Why was the killer in Memorial Valley Massacre just so aimless and purposeless? Because he was a Neanderthal man. Well, he wasn't technically a Neanderthal man. He just acted like one.
Yeah, I always thought he was a caveman, but in the description, he's called a hermit.
I like the Neanderthal man. That was punny. I like that.
Thank you.
Very punny.
And you are welcome as well, Justin.
We appreciate it, Erik. Thank you for going above and beyond. But anyway, so anything left to say apart from what we've got coming up next time?
That's a negatory, big buddy.
Okay. Well, before we find out what we're playing out with at the, coming up now at the end of the show, it's my choice next time, and I'm going to take us back to the glory days of our Jali double bills. And this is kind of, arguably, you could argue to the cows come home, whether films not made in Italy, although one of these is an Italian co-production, qualifies as Giallo, but certainly they are fellow travellers. So we're going to go to Spain, which is my current country residence, for The Corruption of Chris Miller, and a dragonfly for each corpse, which will have plenty of eye candy for Erik, as it stars the barrel-chested Paul Naschy.
Yum, 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 yum.
So, yeah, two Spanish giallo-tinged slasher thrillers from the 1970s coming up next time on Hysteria Continues. So join us for that, won't you? And what are we playing out with, Nathan?
We are going to play out with Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley, because the caveman's never going to give up his land.
Fair enough.
Very tenuous, but okay. Nathan just rickrolled us all.
Indeed.
Yes, I did. I'm bringing it back because I don't think that's a thing anymore, but I'm bringing it back.
Well, the Chief Ranger never gave up his search for his son, even though he wasn't very good at it.
See, I mean, it works on multiple levels.
Well, okay. Well, thank you for joining us on Hysteria Continues, and we look forward to seeing you or you joining us next time. So, say goodbye to good people.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bon voyage.
Bye.
Never gonna give you up.